Today on our show on Wzra Tv and Kamo Sam Radio, we are very glad to have with us Dr. Stacy Baker of Vibe Wellness, who is also a holistic nutritionist and does functional medicine. How are you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself, like we said, a little bit what you do, a little bit so people can learn about you.
Yeah, of course. So I am, of course, a functional medicine doctor. So I help people. We use very special functional medicine lab testing to locate toxicities, locate deficiencies, that sort of thing, and help people basically get a plan to eradicate whatever's going on that's causing all these symptoms and rebalance the body, replacing deficiencies and ridding the body of the toxins to just come to a state of homeostasis. So everybody's a little different that comes in. It's really cool that we're all so unique, and when we have toxin loads, they look different on everybody because we all have different genetics, and how are they going to affect our hormones, or what system are they going to affect first? That's kind of, I love the investigative work of the labs and kind of picking it apart to figure out what's actually going on.
Okay, well, this is what I'm curious about. First off, how many years have you been doing this?
I actually have, so I've been in the health industry for a long time, but I finished up my doctorate thanks to COVID. It gave me time to.
Very good.
I've so fully immersed myself within the past year to just functional medicine.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, it's really my passion, and it's really what helped me get better. Long story short, I've been sick for 10 years with chronic illness, had a new diagnosis every year, and eventually had breast implant illness.
Oh,
so
goodness.
That was a tipping point. Yeah. And so when I discovered functional medicine after having an explant surgery, that's what really helped me finalize and restore my health. So it's been a no-brainer for me to take that direction.
Wow. And you healed pretty much yourself, like on your own? Like we said, you discovered what was going on, your symptoms. Is that how you did it? Or you worked through different functional medicine doctors, or how did you get to the point of healing for yourself?
Yeah, so I worked with a practitioner for about 6 months, and I made a lot of progress. But in that process, I realized there were some things that were missing. Just for me specifically, a lot of people don't address parasites when they're doing. And I had a lot of Lyme co-infection type symptoms, so I had to kind of go back and almost not completely start over, because I was already feeling a lot better, but you have to address parasites from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Medicine detox.
Wow. Yeah. Now, when you say parasites, what type of symptoms did you have that follow that? Because I'm realizing that it's a big thing all of a sudden, especially now. Like, what's going on with that? Yeah.
So the way I look at it, and the way that I've been trained, is if you have a pulse, you have parasites. And the reason why it's such an epidemic right now is because we live in such a completely toxic environment. We have biotoxin illness, we have environmental toxin illness. What that does is it spins your body in a way that your immune system really kind of takes the back seat and allows these, parasites, whether they're microscopic or visible, to kind of populate. So a lot of it's gut health, a lot of it's are just toxin load is too full, so that's why it's become such an epidemic. Plus, parasites are holding tanks for viruses like Lyme and Epstein-Barr. They are holding tanks for metals. So that's why if you don't address them in the beginning of any detox, that's why a lot of people have recurring symptoms, because they haven't addressed the parasitic aspect of it.
Now, can you tell me, for normal people, and you as well, you can speak for yourself, did you have symptoms, but do you have to have them? Do you have to not? Like, how do you feel? What do you think about that?
So a lot of people, so there are some parasite, what people think about parasite symptoms is they think, okay, I went to Africa and I have, and I just vomiting and stuff like that. That's not necessarily the case for parasites. We look at co-infections, we look at other things. Like if someone tests for metals, we're going to clear parasites, because I know that what's showing on your metal test, I know there's more in your system, because I know that your immune system has been compromised, and we're going to treat you for parasites. So brain fog, people who have chronic fatigue, of course, GI symptoms is going to be a thing, especially when people complain of having low stomach acid or acid reflux, those sort of things, that's a very telltale sign for me that there's parasites going on. But a lot of your just autoimmune symptoms, a lot of your Lyme symptoms, Epstein-Barr, those are all going to be tellers for me that there's parasites as well.
Oh, wow. And what did you do, or what do you do for your clients to like clear that out? Like we said, you like to do it the natural way. Do you kind of use natural methods?
There's natural methods. I use specific blends. I use a lot of products by a company called Cellcore, and they have the supplementation already combined in a way that it gets past the blood-brain barrier. We're actually getting, I mean, parasites can be so microscopic. They can be in our brain. They can be, they can be anywhere. So I love the products that can really get where you need to get. They don't stay in the gut. They kind of can go all over. So addressing that, certain things such as like coffee enemas, that sort of thing. Also, I use a lot of Ayurvedic herbs. Ayurveda, they've been doing parasite cleansing for 5,000 plus years. And all of a sudden we have Western medicine that doesn't address anything for parasites. So
right.
Our environment's only gotten worse, So it's just interesting to me, like all of our animals, all of our insects, all of our plants can all have parasites, but we as human beings are just,
right.
I mean, that's just not the case.
How do you feel also about like supernatural methods in the way of like, they said like to do papaya seeds and to mix it with like honey and pumpkin seeds? How do you think those are as effective that people use like totally like through food or natural methods to do parasites to clean them out?
The way that the environment that we live in is today, I don't think that they are effective on their own. No, because by the time someone has gotten to the point that they have a dysbiosis, they need more help. And we really have to get into the biofilm. That's why I love things like the Para 1, the Para 3, because they get in there. And for people who don't know what biofilm is, it's basically a membrane, a mucous membrane that's created by any pathogens. It becomes very sticky, and it becomes a really good hiding place for these things to kind of nest in, and stay pretty dormant. And so we have to get in there, and you have to really break up that biofilm. That's why I use things like biocidin, grapefruit seed extract, that sort of thing. Use those in combination with some of the other remedies.
Glyphosates are a big topic at hand, environmental toxins. How do people clear that out of the system? That's a big topic at hand, an issue at hand.
Oh man, that's such a huge thing. So, people don't, they don't understand that, to really clear the body, you've got to clean up what's in your household first. And so a lot of people think like, oh, I can just do the process, but not switch to organic food, or, continue to eat out all the time, or, or don't filter my water. You have to be able to clean up. Like, I know that you can't live in a bubble, but you have to, what is in your home is what you're most exposed to.
Right.
So, getting distilled, like a water distiller, water contains heavy metals, it contains pharmaceuticals, it contains radioactive elements. These are all things that create a dysbiosis in the body. It leads us eventually to a state of disease. So the water, the food, buying organic food, glyphosate is a whole topic, and I'm sure that that's on your list.
It is.
So you gotta first stop the exposure. To get on binders that can pool the toxins. Like I was mentioning about through the blood-brain barrier without stripping your body of minerals as well. So you've got to be able to, make sure that you're not doing more harm than good, because minerals, we need those as well. And so there's a lot of chelation protocols out there that are very hard on the body, especially for a compromised body.
Like, what do you use, or what do you recommend for people? Proper water filtering? How do you feel about the whole situation? Because I feel like we're still not safe per se. We're still not good.
So I love the Berkey shower filter.
Okay.
It really, I feel like it does a pretty good job. But as far as the water that we drink, I mean, you could be filtering your water and still have radioactive elements.
Right.
I've recently found out that I love a Berkey. I have a Berkey for drinking water, but it doesn't filter out
Oh,
radioactive.
see. Yes, exactly.
So, I actually distill my water. I
Oh,
distill,
okay.
and then I add trace minerals back into it to kind of stabilize it for pH purposes. So that's what I find to work best. Now, you could test your home for mold. An ERMI test is a really good test for you. And then there's also a company called EC3 that has little petri dishes you can put in each room of your house, so you could really tell where it's a
Uh-huh.
problem. So that could be a thing. But I also know that stress alone, and the stress from the quarantine can actually swing your hormones in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, you're thinking either increase estrogen or increase androgens.
Right.
So stress alone can kind of be a key player in that. So, kind of, looking at not just hormones, but looking at things that could cause your hormones to be off. Is it internal stress? Is it pathogenic stress? That sort of thing. But definitely, yeah. So the water, testing your home, like we talked about for mold, and then of course addressing things that could be causing your androgens or your estrogen to be off are
When
typical hair loss causes.
Yeah, we usually work with clients like that. They come in and they show you different, like their hormone tests and Dutch tests. Do you have to go through each testing with your clients to see what the situation is, or do you usually pretty much you can tell what's going on with your clients?
I've kind of gotten to the point where I can tell, but I still like to run at least a couple labs because I want them to, for one, have a baseline,
Yeah.
and for two, I want them to know that, okay, this, like, sometimes people need to see things on paper to really understand.
Right.
And a lot of people, by the time they come to me, have been extremely gaslighted from conventional doctors
Mm-hmm.
that been told, like, there's nothing wrong with you, your labs are fine. So when they can see, like, and I can tell them, like, look, this is why you have brain fog, you have metals, you have candida, that sort of thing. Then they cry and they finally feel validated that, like, they know that, for one, there is something going on. It's not in their head. And the other thing is too that it can be fixed.
Right, and that's the great thing. And tell me, this is what I wanted to know. Like we said, this is a big question. Now with like the quarantine and everything, the whole COVID thing, have you found that your patients have different symptoms? And a lot more people are getting, like you'll call a functional medicine doctor and they're like, oh, we're booked till like September. Like everything is like crazy. Or like the Dutch test, oh, like, oh, we can't get it in now because it's like we're so packed. Or like different hair loss doctors are like, oh, no, we're like packed because so many people are having situations. Everything is backed out the door and people are like saying it out loud that they're having situations and more health issues. What are you finding? Is it the toxins? Why did it happen out of nowhere? In 2019, I'm sure people, of course, had situations, but not as bad. They were out and about. Oh, I'm okay. I'm healthy. It hit as soon as everybody was like in lockdown and like, oh no, this is happening. This is happening. Is it the stress you mentioned? Is it what's going on? Are the toxins? We're at home. What's going on?
It's a combination of lots of things. I think we've been in our home. That means less vitamin D exposure, less sunlight. Regardless on what your, take is on mask and that sort of thing, that can your nose is a detoxifying pathway, and so when you are limited in that area, it's going to cause more toxin buildup, that sort of thing. So if the situation is that a person does have to wear a mask all day, that could certainly cause more recirculation of toxins. And then the other thing too is, there was a statistic that I read about how people who work from home are 40% more likely to have cancer. And it's because, is it their home environment that's toxic? Is it because they overeat? Is it because they're less active? It's probably a combination of lots of factors, but I think a lot of people, their homes are very toxic, and they're drinking more tap water, and in my heart, I want to think, okay, people are home, they have more time to learn about their health and make real food,
right.
and, stuff, but there's more DoorDash, there's more toxins coming in because we're just ordering convenient food. So people are, they're taking in more toxins in that way. They're eating more processed, so they're gaining weight. Their hormones are getting thrown off. And then the stress of everything, of being in your home, having kids that you're now homeschooling, that's enough to throw off your gut microbiome. That's enough to throw off your hormones. So yeah, it's really sad, and if people, and honestly, that's one reason why we moved. We moved Midwest, and we just said, look, we're not going to be locked in our home all winter. We want to be somewhere that we can be out in the sunshine, that our kids can be in school, and you have to make your mental health.
That's great. And speaking of sunshine and vitamin D levels, so you recommend like taking vitamin D like every day, and then also what other vitamins, and how do you feel also, I'm going to throw this in there, about SPF, because SPF also has chemicals. We know there's some not good hormone chemical, like endocrine disruptors in there. I'm even scared. I'm like, okay, which SPF do I get? Then you need it not to wear it like at least 20 minutes to get your vitamin D as well. So how do you feel about all of these things? Go ahead and cover that for us.
Yeah, so I definitely want you to have full exposure for at least 20 minutes, like you said, unprotected.
Right.
There are good mineral type sunscreens out there. One thing that is really underestimated though is when their omega-3s are where they're supposed to be. So that's another thing. People 6s omega-9s are through the roof because we're eating all this processed food. But when your omega-3s are where they're supposed to be, it actually works as a natural, SPF. We burn because think about, people on the Mediterranean diet live in that area. They're exposed to sun all the time. They're healthy as can be. They have that natural,
So do you recommend taking like omega-3 pills, or like through food? Do you recommend to do that so you have that in you?
Yeah, just definitely being aware and not consuming too much omega-6s and omega-9s, which are the inflammatory type fat. Adding in omega-3 foods for sure, like salmon, that sort of thing, olive oils. But, most people, that's not enough. So definitely taking a wild sourced omega-3 is always going to be beneficial. Everyone's their diet. We are the most overfed and undernourished country. And so, I would love for people to get this. But the thing is, you got to think most of the population is dealing with leaky gut anyway.
Correct. Right.
Why supplementation is so huge, especially in the beginning of somebody's health journey.
Correct. And then I saw, I was watching a video, celebrities were saying what they eat, their healthy diets, and then Nina Dobrev, she mentioned, she's like, oh, I have a gluten intolerance, I can't eat gluten. And I liked in your video that you did on Instagram, you mentioned something that everybody can't just be intolerant to gluten or sensitive to it. There must be something else. And you mentioned it might be the glyphosates, which is good. That's the situation that could be at hand. Not everybody, even myself, I'm like, oh, I eat pasta, I don't feel well. It might not be the pasta or the bread. It might be the glyphosates, the Roundup that's causing the situation. Everybody's just assuming, oh, we can't handle gluten. And I like how you brought up that topic in your videos. So.
Yes. So, something, and even with, what has happened last year, there are heat maps that show the most cases of the virus were in the highest sprayed areas of glyphosate. There's something to be said about that. Glyphosate is ruining the microbiome of people, and it leads to bigger things such as celiacs. It's leading to why all of a sudden are we dealing with infertility out the roof, ADHD, ADD, autism. These are not normal. Used to be 1 in 1,500. Now we're looking at 1 in every 2 males will be autistic, and by 2040, if we don't stop, this spraying, because they're just so highly correlated with the graphs of how much glyphosate is being sprayed, cases of autism, cases of celiacs, cases. You can't turn a blind eye to that. And we live in a world where the most dangerous place to live is actually a farm.
Oh,
because being sprayed everywhere. It's such a hot topic to me because, people think, oh, you just can't escape everything. But the thing is, you can vote with your money. And if we vote, by buying organic, those companies will make sure we have more organic.
Do you feel safe, you as yourself with your family? Do you feel like you're taking the proper procedures to stay away from the glyphosate and the toxins? Do you feel like you're good, or how you can help people? Like we said, if they're not aware, or they're still not buying organic, or they're still doing things that they're exposed, or their hormones are a mess, and they're not taking the proper procedures. Do you think How do you feel?
As far as my family goes?
Yes, with your family, then you could start off what you recommend for others as well to help them.
Yeah, so definitely. I have my kids on binders. I make sure they are drinking water at school. They take distilled water with them. We take our lunches to school. We have air purifiers in our home. Florida is one of those areas that mold is going to be a hot topic anywhere in Florida because mold loves humid, moist conditions. So, we have air purifiers. We've tested our home for mold. I think in general, everyone should be on a good binder, whether or not just because of what you're exposed to daily. And the thing too is parasites as well can be passed from family member to family member. The human, and so unless your family is all actively cleansing parasites and on binders and stuff like that, all these things could be passed to each other. So
correct. And like we said, though, for families, if they're not aware they have parasitic infections or anything like that, like we said, the symptoms, you said though, because there's so many things, like we said, it could be the gut, it could be the mold, it could be the toxicity, it could be the metals. There's so many things. Like if a family finds out or someone has a situation, your mind always just runs to oh my gosh, what is it? Of the many factors.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of that. My family, we had a historic home back in Indiana for a few years. And when I was kind of at the peak of being the sickest I could be, I was getting to the point that I was having really bad anxiety. When someone has anxiety, that sort of thing, my mind is always going to go to mold because the way it swings in your ears. And not only that, but when you have mold, you breathe more shallow. And so that cause anxiety, right? We're hyperventilating.
Interesting. Yes.
So I had tested positive for mold when I had done my initial stint. Of course, later I tested my husband. I even tested my son, and we've all tested for aspergillus, which is black mold. So I now know. Yeah. So I now know that it was a environmental, because when you test for mycotoxins, it could be your food, coffee beans, those sort of things can contain mold. But when you have more family members, test, then it's environmental.
Now, did your blood work come out okay? Or how do you test for the mold, or what says it? How did you test for that?
Well, I don't do blood testing for mold. It's a urine test. So when you look at metabolites, when you are testing for, mold and biological toxins, so basically you're excreting what you have too much of. So that's what you look at markers, basically the oat test, the organic acid test, or the mycotox test is what I use to be able to diagnose that.
The oat test, that's not a form of Dutch, right? Is that a, that's so different.
The Dutch is a hormone test. The organic acid test, it's like the mecca, in my opinion, of functional medicine tests. We're looking at yeast, we're looking at mold, we're looking at fungus, bacteria. We look at the Krebs cycle to see, because, these things, of course, this is going to get technical, but when people have chronic fatigue or they have issues, we have to look at the mitochondria because that's where energy is created. So the oat test gives us markers into that. It gets us neurotransmitter markers and also looks at specific vitamin deficiencies. So it gives us a lot of information.
Through the oat test, all of that? Yeah. Oh, that is? Yeah. That's very interesting. That's a good piece of information then for you that you use.
You can I do that. That's my favorite. And then I also do a hair tissue mineral analysis, which shows me metals, and it shows levels. And also it will show me, by looking at your minerals and the ratios, I can look at your adrenals and your thyroid to see how they're functioning.
Okay. Oh, wow. And I forgot to ask you, when you boil water to just cook, because I always wondered about this, what water do you use then? To if you're going to boil some pasta, what do you use to make food? The distilled water. You do. Yeah. And then do you rinse your fruits and vegetables? With what?
It just depends on what I have on hand. Right now I have a Thieves, the Young Living type wash that I use. There are always some kind of organic fruit washes you can buy, at the grocery and stuff like that. So just kind of whatever I have on hand. But I think people have a misconception that you can wash off pesticides, and that's just not a thing. You can possibly, if there's some parasites on your produce or something like that, you can definitely wash that off. But the glyphosate is in the cells of the plant. You cannot wash that off. So I think people think, oh, it's good, I wash my fruit and vegetables. Like, oh.
No. See, there's a lot that people have to learn. There's chlorine in tissues. In our toilet papers that we use, there's chlorine. There's things that are, right?
I mean, if it's buying organic cotton, you can certainly, it's everywhere. So
it's everywhere.
Certainly, yeah. And I know it's more expensive, but the way I look at it is, you pay now or you pay later.
Yeah,
You're either going home as much as you can, or you're going to, and the thing is, like I said, if you can control what's in your home, there are binders that if you did go on vacation or if you were somewhere where you wouldn't normally be, that you can maintain your health while you're somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So you can get home out of that situation, or, if you have to go to work in an office, that sort of thing.
Right. So do you buy clean paper towels, or where's your go-to place, especially in Florida? Where do you shop for fruits, vegetables, and do you do all that with the clean paper towels, everything clean in your home?
Yes. So we try to do as little paper products as we can.
Okay.
I'm still trying to find my footing on where I love to grocery shop. Of course there's Whole Foods, but I like to find more local markets. Yes. That's what I had back. So things like that, we have Sprouts down here, mm-hmm. That sort of thing. So that's kind of but as far as my actual food supply comes from, I use local, like CSAs, that sort of thing. They all have delivery now. Mm-hmm. It's all, so I much prefer that than going to a big chain,
Yes. And then tell me, what vitamins do you guys take that are natural? Do you kind of have a brand that you like, and then also how do you feel about probiotics too? Do you guys have a regimen that you take or recommend?
Yeah, so my kids, I kind of switch. I'm trying to find, so they're kind of getting they're 8 and 10. Mm. So I'm kind of going from the kitty vitamins to potentially adult. There are vitamins that I love, but they all contain sugar pretty much. Nordic Naturals has a decent children's multivitamin. I also give them a probiotic. Mm. We were in for a while. I gave them a B12 while we were done. And then, but anymore, I use a vitamin powder for them and then a probiotic powder. I just mix it in their smoothie so I know that they're getting their nutrients, they're getting everything all in one. So that's what I do for them. My husband, he takes a good multivitamin. You definitely want to get a therapeutic grade. So we're talking Designs for Health or some kind of functional medicine brand like Equilibrium or something like that. You definitely want a high quality, a very, you want to look to make sure it can be assimilated and used by the body, because so many people are so deficient in so many things. They think they're taking vitamins from, the drugstore, and they're mm-hmm. and taking them out. Nothing.
Exactly.
They're not utilizing them. So you have to make sure that you get a therapeutic grade. Mary Roos for kids is another good brand.
Oh, it's good.
Organic vitamins. And then, when we were in the Midwest, I think everyone should be on a vitamin D unless you can actually have sun exposure once a day. So that's a really important one. And then so probiotics. So the way I feel about probiotics is, when people come to me and they're having GI issues or I suspect yeast overgrowth or something like that, I tell them immediately to get off of the probiotics for right now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I feel better, because when I was really sick, I couldn't even have kombucha or anything because because what it was doing was it was feeding the yeast and the bacteria in my gut. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm healthy, I'm taking it. But honestly, they could be making their problems worse unless they know what they're up against. Now, if you are having skin issues or something like that, eczema, psoriasis, something like that, a lot of times a spore-based probiotic is what you're going to need.
And what is that? I'm sorry to cut you off. What is that? What do you mean by that?
So a spore-based is basically, it makes the probiotic more resistant to stomach acid. Mm-hmm. So it goes further down the digestive tract to give your body a little bit more microbiome and just doesn't get just eaten up in the stomach, basically. So that's kind of the new technology for probiotics, is a spore-based type thing.
And again, what brand would you recommend? Like who offers a good one?
So Cellcore has one called CT Spore, and then also Metagenics has a mega probiotic, is what they call it, a mega spore. Those are two really good options.
Have you heard of also Mega Food? That they have, like, it's like glyphosate free, gluten free, non-GMO, like they're kind of clean. Have you heard of it?
I think I've had my children on their kids' vitamin. I mean, you know, the grocery store, you know, that's one that you could buy at Whole Foods. It is okay, but what I feel like I have more luck when I am ordering my more therapeutic type grade. You know, I mean, they're okay for in between, but, you know, Metagenics, Designs for Health, those sort of brands, I see more results out of them. You
do. How much vitamin D do you recommend everybody take as well? Because, like, people take like 5,000. They take. Do you recommend there's a certain amount everyone should take?
Oh, you don't want to take, you know, too much, because then you're going to deal with toxicity. So
yes, I agree.
I use for, I think it's 50 pounds of body weight. So a normal adult's going to be between 4,000 to 5,000 IUs a day. So, yeah. So, and you don't want to go over that, because then you're just, we have it's not the more the better, you know, you definitely want to make sure that you're, you know, kind of right in line with that.
I agree. Yeah. People feel like if they take more, they're like, oh, I'm healthier, but you got it. Like we said, it's like too much is no good either. So you don't want to,
Everything's all about balance. So, you know, too much of anything is going to cause trouble systemically, you know?
Exactly. And then can you tell me also about fast food? How do you feel about that? Is there like glyphosate in our foods? I went down a list the other day and it said like McDonald's bread, or I don't know, Pizza Hut's pizza, or Domino's, whatever. Is it, again, to be fearful to even eat out because we're being exposed out as well?
I know personally, like anytime I have food out, I feel sick.
Yeah.
Like, you know, unless it's a farm to table, a local restaurant, that sort of thing. I mean, you can expect that your fish is going to be farmed. Your meat is going to have hormones in it. You know, unless it says organic, it's going to have glyphosate. Yeah. I mean, you know, and the thing is, like, I'm not saying don't ever go out to eat. It's just be prepared. Have the binders with you, you know, if you are having something that, you know, you can't control where it's coming from. And that's, you know, the Cellcore, they have really good. So the HMET binder that they have is the one that I would use to treat glyphosate toxicity. And the one that I would recommend if you have to get a coffee that's not organic or go out to eat and you know that it's questionable, you know, you definitely want to have those on hand to make sure, you know, you're not accumulating. Because that's the thing, you know, the way the FDA gets away with having these toxins in our food and water supply is because they say the poison is in the dose. But what they don't tell you, things accumulate and they leach onto our DNA. And unless you're actively getting them out of your system, they're just going to build and build and build. And that's, you know, that's not something that's really mentioned or talked about.
Exactly.
People really try, you know.
Exactly. So do you guys take that as a family, like the Cellcore thing, like all the time then? Like, is that what you guys are going to be on to protect yourselves? Like, or is that what's going to happen with...
I time mine with sauna. So I practice sauna therapy, just because I'm kind of at a point where I, you know, am stable with my health. And so I just want to make sure I'm not accumulating. So I sauna and I do hot yoga. So anytime you can increase sweating, use that pathway. Your skin is your largest detoxification organ. So sweating, Epsom salt baths, that sort of thing for daily detoxifying is something I feel that everybody should incorporate in. So I time my binders before and after my sauna to really get more bang for my buck. So just really sweating that stuff out.
Exactly. So how do you feel then? Like, do you feel great? Like, do you have a lot of energy with everything now that the place that you're at? Like, are you...
I mean, when I was really sick, of course I had thyroid, one of the first thing a woman's going to fail is their thyroid. But my cognition and my brain fog had gotten so bad. I would be driving and I would forget where I was going. Like,
oh my gosh.
And I couldn't retain anything. And so as soon as I did my detox, I was able to get my doctorate. Like, that's how
Wow. That's understandable though. I understand how you can't get it when you have those situations. I get that. Yeah.
People don't understand, like, was I functional? Yeah. But you don't understand how much you're in like zombie mode until you get out and you're in, like, processes are working the way they're supposed to and your brain's working the way it's supposed to. It's just like, it's just really hard to put into words. And I feel sorry because I think so many people are just going through the motions in life and they just feel like crap and they just think, well, this is just natural aging, and it's just not.
It's not. So I didn't ask you, how long did the process take for you to heal?
So I did so for me, the very first part was getting my implants out. So that was, and a lot of women, when they get that done, they feel immediately better. And so I was kind of frustrated because I didn't, I felt better, but I don't think I would have been able to fully heal unless they were out anyway. So I worked with a practitioner for about 6 months, and then I did another 6 months or so of just kind of, I was in school at that time, so I was kind of like learning things. I was playing with this, playing with that. And then I went and did a full, I used Cellcore products to kind of like round everything out for, 8 months or so. So for me, if I would have done it right, I probably could have taken 10 months and been done. But I have to learn the hard way. And, I did one way and then I, went back and redid things. So, I'd say about 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, but look at the place that you're at now. That's amazing. So you're living proof, like, for people, like, that's amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, if I had to go back, I would redo it, because the thing is, I had to learn the hard way so I can help my clients so they don't take the wrong path. I can say from experience, I tried that. It didn't work because of this.
Yes.
Help them. So
that's great.
On top of the newly found environmental toxicities that we're dealing with, the metals, everything in our water supply. Most women are going to deal, like I said, one of the first things that's going to shut down is either their thyroid or their sex hormones. Glyphosate, we already know, is related to infertility. It's a hormone disruptor. The chemicals in our glassware, everything in our home has endocrine disrupting capabilities, which means that it mimics our hormones. So, of course, our estrogen is going to be high because, these things are, replicating that in our body. So they're making these unreal, like, hormone reactions in our body. So yeah, it's really an accumulation of so many things that we're all being exposed to, right?
Yeah.
And women are really cyclical. You know how, like, when you live with a group of women and eventually your cycles kind of sync up together.
Yeah.
So, like, we are way more connected than what we realize. And there are, that's just kind of like, we kind of feed off of each other, what is going on, and just, a lot of things with, like, the vaccine that's coming out. A lot of women are having menstrual issues and they may not even have had it.
Correct.
But
yeah.
We're all around each other, right? And so we're all collectively, dealing with these same issues because of the people that we're around, because, it has to do with our cycles and, all this sort of thing. So, yeah, I think it's accumulation. And what I notice is, like, a deterioration in health. When a woman is about 30, I see a lot of the same things happening. It just may hit them at different times. So we're having the brain fog, we're having the thyroid issues, we're having estrogen dominance, and it's a accumulation of all these things. It's the toxins in our environment. It's, the thyroid issues. It's, the birth control use, which has already depleted our gut microbiome. Then you add in the glyphosate, which further depletes it. You know what I mean? So
yes.
It's full of events. And I think a lot of women, and I think it really kind of makes women brush things off because they're like, oh, well, all my friends have this. So this is just what it's like.
Exactly.
Or 40 or whatever it is. And it's like, no, this is not normal.
It's not normal.
It could be a really red flag as to it is our environment.
Yes.
Because all having the same problem.
Yes. In Europe, do they have these situations? Are they really eating cleaner? Like anywhere in Europe?
I'm afraid, like, I know that anytime I've been to Europe, I, didn't have the digestive issues.
Yes.
I felt healthier.
Yes.
They banned so many of the food additives, the ingredients, and everything else. However, like the last time I went out of the country was in England, and they're starting to like follow our lead on
Oh,
a
they
lot
are.
of processed foods, and and everybody says England's going to be the next
Yeah.
obesity,
Yeah.
because they're following our lead. So if these countries stay true to what's working for them and they keep banning the glyphosate and the food additives, I mean, you could take a label from an item, even from McDonald's, from the US and France, and the US is going to have twice to 3 times as many ingredients as the one from France does. So yes, I hear. And you got to think, Europe, anytime I travel to Europe, restaurants aren't open all day like they are here.
Right.
They close midday, they close, they reopen for dinner. You don't have fourth meal when you go to Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I noticed, like in Spain, like we said, their ketchup, or anywhere I'm sure in Europe, is clean. And then here, like if you read the ingredients, like we said, there's high fructose corn syrup and all these things. But Burger King, I noticed, we got Burger King the other day. I know, bad as it is, their ketchup is simply now, and they changed their ketchups actually. There's no bad ingredients. So I was like, wow, one good, I see one little improvement, but their ketchup's clean. Sometimes they switch it, I don't know, but the other day it says simply, and okay, as far as we know, as clean as it could be for fast food, we'll say. So
I would love to see that, because the reality is like the way our environment is, people just aren't going to take the time and just cook all their meals at home.
Exactly. It's funny. Yeah, the other day we did eat out, and I'm like, oh, I'm bringing my clean ketchup with me. I brought my clean ketchup. Well, I know the fast food's bad as it is, but I'm like, all right, do one thing that we can.
Yes.
Sometimes the body craves fast food as well. As bad as it is, it's like you want it, you need it. You're like the French fries, but yeah, sometimes.
Be perfect. Just
Exactly.
be prepared.
Exactly. Like we said, as long as you do your binders and clean it out as you're going, you should be protected.
Yes, absolutely.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.